First thing I forget, way to go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to regular council meeting of June the 9th. We have a full house. We appreciate everybody being here and we look forward to a really good meeting. Before we start, there's two things. The whole council meeting is being taped and will be on YouTube after another working day. And if you have one of these in your pocket, please either turn it off or put it on silent. Thank you so much. So approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Be resolved that council approves the agenda dated June 9th, 2023 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. I have one question for the CAO. Is our fire chief going to be here today?
No, he's away today.
Okay. All right. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none. Business profile, Watkins Tree Service.
Moved by Councillor Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that council receives for information the business profile of Watkins Tree Service provided by Deputy Mayor Inglis, Chair, and Paul Teal, member of the Economic Development Task Force.
Any comments?
Small correction, it's presented by Roy Hudel and Paul Thiel. I'm off that.
I'll amend the motion.
Any other comments? In favor? It's carried. Now we have something really nice that we do every now and then. Senior of the Year Award, Marilee Sykes.
Moved by Councillor Regent, seconded by Councillor Good.
Sorry, folks. It did not get on this, Marilee. I promise you, it did not get on this. This is on YouTube, you know that, eh?
He was so excited.
So we're going to do this. And I'm gonna get there. That's what I'm doing. Lesson, never use coffee at your desk anymore. The last time it was Scott. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to say thank you for this honor, and it is quite an honor. I know some people who have received this award before. But I also know that really it's a community real color. It's not just for me. What we do in the community, we do together. It's not just yeah. Yes.
You take a 10-minute break?
Yeah. I can see it. And they won't be here. So we can take a 10-minute break.
We did get comments tonight, just the. Oh, no, there they are.
Thank you.
You can take mine.
What? Well, I screwed up my agenda.
What's that?
When he comes back. Okay. That was an absolute pleasure. So the next item on our agenda is the communal service presentation by the County of Frontenac. Who's doing the presentation, gentlemen? Joe? Joe Gallivan and Kelly Pender from the County of Frontenac.
Moved by Counselor Region, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Kelly Pender, CAO, County Frontenac, and Joe Gallivan, Director of Planning and Economic Development, County of Frontenac, regarding Frontenac Communal Services, and thanks them for their time spent today.
You waiting for Counselor Inglis? Inglis?
Deputy Mayor.
Okay. No problem. No, good morning, members of council, mayor. Thanks for the invitation for Kelly and I to be here today to talk to you about the communal services project, the regional project. I'm going to speak the first part about how the project was initiated, and Kelly will talk in more detail about the proposed public utility that we're hoping to create for the entire region. And please interrupt me if you have questions, or you can wait to the end. Either way is fine. So the presentation will be in 4 parts. The first part is, why are we doing this? So this has been a 5-year journey from initiating the idea of the importance of having decentralized services for rural communities and the value that will bring. Talk to you briefly about 3 projects that are ready to go or have been in the process across the region. The whole idea of what's formerly called under the Municipal Act, the Municipal Service Corporation, but essentially it's a public utility that would be managing these systems once they're put in the ground, which is a major benefit to actually convincing developers to build on these systems. And then briefly, the next steps that we're heading towards over the next few months. So first of all, why are we doing this? So none of our communities anywhere in Frontenac have municipal water or sewer services, with the exception of the village of Sydenham and South Frontenac. It has a water system that was mandated by the Ministry of the Environment over 20 years ago because of water quality issues in the village. But there are no municipal water sewer services, and with the fiscal capacity of each of the 4 townships, is very unlikely that there ever will be. The cost of building them and maintaining them is significant. We have our settlement areas where we've got a lot of building lots that are relatively small by today's standards, but also the villages and hamlets have significant public investment, both the community putting parks and sidewalks and so on, and also that's where the majority of commercial assessment is across Frontenac County. So the idea of communal services has been something that's been promoted by the province of Ontario since the mid-1970s. And it's in policy documents. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But they require, for good reason, that should a communal service be built today anywhere in Ontario, the developer has to enter into something called a municipal responsibility agreement. And essentially what that is an agreement between a lower tier municipality and a private developer that says, should the system fail or you go bankrupt, the municipality must take it over. And that makes a lot of sense from a health and safety perspective. What it has caused, though, is that it causes and any good treasurer will tell you this, there's significant financial risk on the part of the municipality because these systems, let's say for argument's sake, are $1 million plus. So municipality will say, it makes sense from a planning perspective. It's a good idea. We can have more housing in our villages. However, if you're installing $1 million worth of infrastructure, we want you to write another check for $1 million that we can put in a reserve fund. So the public interest is protected. And that essentially, in many cases, shuts the development down. The business case is not there for the investor. And that is why there are not a lot of these systems, relatively speaking, in Ontario. The impetus for this project comes right out of the county's official plan that was done in 2016, which says the lack of municipal services in our villages challenge the future community viability. So I'm a planner. I think I'm charged with thinking long-term, 25, 50 years ahead. And I started thinking about what is the community going to look like 50 or 100 years from now? Growth is coming one way or the other. Is it going to be always one severance after another, one 2-acre lot after another? What's the community going to look like? How's it going to affect agriculture and so on? It doesn't make a lot of sense in the long term. So how do we solve the problem? And the solution is for rural communities is these decentralized systems. This is just a graphic from MOE's work in the late 70s that show a number of houses connected to one water and sewer system rather than individual private septic and wells. So there's a number of advantages. First of all, it's better environmental protection, especially as we evolve into the climate change. You're going to have one consistent water system, for example, that will, they're designed to handle peak periods. Because these systems will be managed by a utility, they'll be maintained on a consistent basis. And they'll be monitored all the time as well. And compare that to some private services where people may or may not pump out their septics on a regular basis. And some people have well problems, especially during hot spells, etc. That would not be the case for houses on communal services. Certainly from the land use planning side, you'd see smaller lots better fits into the village and hamlet compared to 2-acre lots built adjacent to hamlets. You'd have more people closer to the community, being within walking distance of schools and businesses downtown. You would have essentially walkable communities. Part of the argument in our discussions with the village of Marysville I talked about is they've got 2 schools in that village right now that are on the verge of disappearing because there's not enough kids. So the proposal to add more housing in the village on communal could potentially save those, as well as the post office. So part of the direction for building these kind of systems comes right out of the Ontario's provincial policy statement, which, as you know, is right under the Planning Act, and all our planning decisions, whether it's committee adjustment or official plans, et cetera, have to conform to the provincial policy statement. So on the left-hand side is what's called the servicing hierarchy, the preferred type of servicing for new development in any community. Full municipal services, communal services, and private services. So as I've already noted, full municipal services aren't feasible for any of us in Frontenac. Communal services have that potential for creating different forms of housing in our rural areas. In private services, if we continue this route, it's just going to be the standard type of rural development we've always seen.
What's included in full municipal versus communal?
Full municipal is your typical
Garbage collection?
No, I'm sorry, water and sewer systems, a water plant and a sewer plant that you would see, for example, in the city of Kingston.
So how does that differ from communal?
2 ways. First of all, communal services are designed and scalable. Depending on the amount of development you want them to service, you can scale them. When you put pipes in the ground for municipal services, you've already designed them for a certain size. You've designed them to handle a certain amount of capacity, and you're trying to think ahead. Now, what's happened in some communities, the one community in the Muskokas, for example, I can't remember the name of the town. Is it McTier? McTier. They put in a water and sewer system in the 70s with plant growth, a lot of growth, which has never happened. So where they are today, they're stuck with these big pipes in the ground that are never going to be utilized, but they have to maintain them. So with communal, you never have to worry about that. It's focused on a certain area of land, and they can be added to over time as well. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, so it's just a question of scale, basically, not type of service.
It's a type as well. The communal services, and I'll show you a couple of examples in a minute. It's not a traditional water plant and a sewer plant. And the output, for example, in the sewer plant is different than what you would get in some of these systems.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is the first piece of work we did started in 2018, which was, it was basically looking at, would this work in Frontenac County? And it looked at a number of different things about looking at some of the things I've already mentioned, planning tools, the value of settlement areas, some best practices in Ontario, as well as the financial model, which Kelly will talk. But essentially what the conclusion was of that work was that there's always been perceived obstacles of following this route, whether it's engineering or planning or financial. And the work we've been doing over the last 5 years shows that these obstacles can be overcome. There is solutions to doing this type of development. As part of that work, we asked the consultants, the engineers and planners to take a real world example and give us an alternative development scenario. So this is the community of Inverary in South Frontenac, just about 10 minutes north of Highway 401. And this is a development that's being built right now. It's called Willowbrook. Standard 2-acre lots, all residential, houses being built for approximately $1 million each. We asked them to do a scenario. I'm sorry that may be hard to read, but it is on our website, of looking at could we do theoretically if we did it on communal services. So that's a 69-acre parcel land, 28 hectares. And you're looking at the build out on the left of the screen is of the development that's going in there now. That's 16 single detached units, 2.3 units per acre. On your right is what could happen with communal services. So they fashioned a mixed use development with 41 single detached lots, 9 townhouse lots, townhouses being quote unquote more affordable, an apartment building for seniors in the bottom left of that scenario, and as well as a commercial use. And the top right part of that development, you see I'm colorblind, but it's that large, darker green area. Thank you, Kelly. That's where the communal wastewater treatment would be, and it could also be used as passive recreational use as well. So the one on the left is the types of subdivisions we're dealing with right now in Frontenac, because it's the only way we can do it. Because we have to deal with individual. You can see the potential with communal on the right. So this is an example of the box. This is the size of a shipping container. And that box, everything in that box can treat up to over 100 residential dwellings. It's a company called Newterra. They're just down the road in the community of Brockville. They have a 450,000 square foot facility where they build these systems, both wastewater and water. They've been around for a long time. A lot of planners don't even know about them. And I've been fortunate over the last 5 years to get to meet engineers and builders of these systems and get a really better understanding about them. So this is an example of one of the systems being put into a community. Again, could handle over 100. That's just to give you an idea. We also saw some images that you can fashion these boxes to make them look prettier. They can look like a small house or a cottage or something. So they don't have to look like a sea can. This is just to give you an example of this company, this particular company. They've been putting these in all over the world. They've got some up in Northern Canada for the Department of National Defense. They've put them in Africa. You see everywhere. But if you notice, particularly the United States, decentralized communal systems are much more welcome in that environment than they are here. The Federal Housing and Urban Development promote them in small communities. And so you can see that Newterra, and they've been around for over 25 years, they have some experience. So we collectively, when I say we, it was County Council, had a special council meeting, first time ever outside of Frontenac County on May the 10th. We're given a tour of the facility. So you can see the mayor in the bottom left of the screen and Councillor Fowler on the left. So 7 of 8 county council members were there. And I can let the mayor and Councillor Fowler speak to, they were given a tour of the plant. They were given a tour inside one of those boxes. And the CEO of the company gave us a presentation on what they do, what type of water quality comes out of the systems at the end. So I think many of the counselors who got a better understanding at the end of that day about that this is a real tangible thing. This is not new technology. It's been around for a long time.
So members of council, Councilor Fallon, I did go through it. The pictures show like a 40 or 40-foot sea container. Actually, they can go down to about 20 and they can double them up. And some of the pictures we've seen, they were made to look from a utilitarian piece of steel, something quite aesthetic. It depends how much money you want to spend, and the amount of space they take up for treatment either way is minimal. And the water is good enough to dump into a water course. If you want to add another treatment at the end, you can drink it when you're finished. Councilor Hermer.
What certification would anyone have to monitor this?
Through you, Mayor, that's a good question. So there's operators that monitor these systems. They have to go through training and so on and so forth. There's different companies in Ontario that have operators for systems. And the other thing about at least Newterra's technology is they have monitors that they can look at offsite 24/7 and see if there's anything's going on. But they physically go there, depending on how much development, they'll go there once a month or something to check them out. But they are always monitored. And the other thing that I was surprised to hear is that the pieces in that box, a lot of the stuff you could buy at Home Depot, like there's a technology at the very end that is specifically designed for these systems, but the pipes, the monitors, everything is standard. And that's a good thing too, because they'll be easy, pieces are easy to replace.
Well, are they contracted then by the municipality to do this, or?
Also, and Kelly will speak to this, in the case of Frontenac, if we set up the utility will manage these systems. Now, another question we've had is, well, how are you going to staff this utility that is going to be created? And I think in the short term, it would be contracted out, to somebody like the company I just spoke to, or potentially Utilities Kingston with their expertise. They could manage and monitor these, or the town of Perth, closer to the north, could do that. They have the engineering expertise to do that.
Yes, I just want to make a statement that I was really impressed by this technology. To have a system that small that can purify your water and deal with your wastewater as well in an effective way, and have it almost come out that you could put it back into into the environment without any danger. There are certain things that that it can't handle, like I think they had a problem with pharmaceuticals, did they?
No,
No,
in fact, I'm not being a salesperson for this company, but they stated that unlike traditional municipal water septic or sewage system plant, they can eliminate all pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And they can eliminate the microplastics. And we had that question at Charbot Lake when we were talking about communal. They take all of that stuff out.
But the idea is that you get almost pure water back. And when I think of a septic system, all of that stuff, pharmaceuticals and plastics and all that get back into the environment, because they can't control that. But they use a reverse osmosis systems and things like that on that, and that is really good.
This is very impressive, but I just want to throw in a note of caution that if you're proposing a development type and a new corporate structure based on one company's technology, there's a bit of risk. I assume the other possibility for waste disposal communally is a big septic system, the traditional system. So what you presented from Newterra is one company with new technology, and that's a risk. I remember Kelly telling me years ago when I was looking into pyrolysis, we do not want to be on the bleeding edge.
No, the good news is there's all kinds of these companies, like we're using Newterra as an example, but for example, Waterloo Biofilter is a more natural system, rotating biodigesters, which we have one at the office, and in Glen Burnie. There's all kinds of these technologies. We're just using this as one of the possible examples
Yeah.
as an alternative to a significant.
You know, so it's a more mature technology than what I'm talking about.
Just thinking this question, or this comment actually came from a Newterra rep. Think about Northern Canada, think about the space station. You know, what do they do? Well, they have systems, something like this. So the systems work. This particular technology from Newterra, the smallest one's about 35, maybe 30 homes, and maybe a little big if you're looking for a 10 or 15 in a subdivision, and maybe a single well and a large septic system would be more appropriate. But the reality is these fit on a very small piece of land. They're very compact. They're not in your face with large digesters and whatever. So it's an option that a developer may want to use. Okay. Councilor Fowler, last question.
The cost of this thing, if you take into consideration the cost of this unit, and if you take into consideration every household has to have a drilled well and a septic system put in, the cost of all them, add that up, and this system will be cheaper. It's a lot more effective, and it's within the range.
And there's two ways to look at it. So what's the cost of a single well and a septic? And amortize that over the lifespan of the single well and septic, and they come out relatively equal. Or at the other end, what am I paying in the city of Kingston with 50,000 other homeowners? And I'm paying about $140 a month, which is similar to this system. So from a cost perspective, it's very cost efficient as well, or at least equal to the other two alternatives.
And just one final point on Newterra. So the reason we went to that plant for two reasons. Number one, I've got to know the company through my research. And number two, they're just down the road. So, and they welcomed us to come, but to Kelly's point, there are a lot of other technologies out there. And it'll be up to the utility to decide how they want to manage those. So, you know, do they want to have a short list of maybe 3 or 4 systems that say, these are the ones you can build on. We've tested them. We know they're good. If you want to do something else, you've got to prove it to us. But these are the 3 or 4 that we would like. And that's if you think longer term and there's 10 or 20 more of these developments in Frontenac County, then they've got all the pieces to replace these. There's an economy of scale there as well. So anyway, thank you for the questions. So just quickly, I want to take you through the 3 projects that we've been working on with the other townships for the last few years. First of all is the Charbot Lake study. So you're probably well aware that Central Frontenac Council purchased, that's the Engage Frontenac site. If you want more details, you just type Engage Frontenac Charbot Lake and it'll come up. The council purchased the former public school site right in the heart of the village about 5 years ago. And like you, they were doing a study on how do we provide housing for seniors. And the recommendation for that study was, let's build on the public school site. We'll use the existing well and septic. We can build 2 4-unit apartments. So a total of 8 units. At that point, because of the work that was being done at the county level, there was questions saying, what would happen if we built on communal? Would it make a difference? So the study was done. It's on that website that said, and I'll show you an image in a second, that instead of 8 units, you could have mixed housing, potentially have some commercial on there, so commercial residential, but there's potential for 2 3-story apartment buildings up to 50 units. The water would come from Charbot Lake and it would go back into Charbot Lake. And the water going back into Charbot Lake, according to the engineer, would be cleaner than the lake water. And then the other idea that council had was, well, if we put communal services on that property, can we hook up to other nearby uses? So for example, the Oso Hall, the Soldiers Memorial Hall, we're looking at hooking that in. It's right beside this property. So this is just a vision of what could go on there. Where we are now is county staff working for the township on the planning side will be going back with an implementation plan this year. We need to talk to the public again about exactly what their vision is for that property, and then council needs to decide how they want to move forward in terms of building on the property. Do they want to own the buildings? Do they want to enter into some kind of partnership with the private sector, or do they just want to put the land up with clear zoning rules and say, can you please build this? That's still has to happen. Marysville on Wolf Island. So as you probably know, there's a new electric ferry that still isn't operating yet, but it's there. And this dock, this is an image of the dock that's being built in the village of Marysville, which is a much bigger improvement than the current system, which in the wintertime, the ferry does not dock in the village. It docks at Dawson Point in the countryside. You have to have a car to either get to Dawson Point or to get on the ferry. This new dock has been designed and dredging has taken place that the ferry will dock 12 months a year in the village. So you could potentially live in the village, work in the city of Kingston, and walk on the ferry every morning and catch an express bus, transit bus to your destination on the other side. With that in mind, council was worried about how would we handle the growth. So starting in 2019, we worked with a consulting firm to do a secondary plan, which is a plan that looks more closely at a certain part of a community about how Marysville could grow and where it should grow. So that's an image of the village. And the recommendation of the study was that the village boundary, which in planning jargon is called a settlement area, and it has a defined boundary, be pulled further south to below the ball diamonds, and those green fields you see there would have new residential development that would knit into the village. So the recommendation was that they would create or add an additional 90 acres. Based on the population projections, they were looking at additional almost 400 residents by the year 2046. So the boundary was expanded to accommodate an additional roughly 160 units. The plan has been adopted by council, and it says very clearly all new development within this expansion area will either be on a public municipal system or by communal services, and specifically mentions the county's communal services study. So that's in place. We're now looking at design standards for the village, and should the utility be created, they'll be ready to entertain development potential in the village. In Verona, the township is working on a housing master plan. There's a conceptual design. As you can see, they're proposing townhouses and multi-story buildings and seniors housing. And they're proposing to use communal services to allow for that scale of development. Otherwise, it couldn't happen. And as it says right in the study, communal services would allow greater density than what would otherwise be permitted on individual services. So at this stage, they're just doing an environmental assessment, looking for completion sometime at the end of this year or early 2024. So my last slide, and I'll pass it over to Kelly, just highlighting communal services will work in a number of ways. It'll work for the region, increased development potential, better water sensitive design, better water quality. It works for developers because they're going to be able to address different market segments, which they can't now. They can't address seniors. They can't address smaller scale housing, different approaches to development. And it works for residents because people will be confident in their water and wastewater treatment systems. They'll never have to worry about their septic or their well. And during COVID, I was amazed when we get calls from people looking to buy in this area. And they were from the GTA and say, where do I hook up to the water and sewer? They didn't know that they had a well and septic in their property. So there's an advantage for that as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Kelly now.
Thank you, Joe. So part of developing a municipal service corporation, and it is a regulation under the Municipal Act, and on the Engage Frontenac site, you can follow the links and see all the work that is followed from the Municipal Act. So a municipal service corporation is a separate corporate entity, but the shareholders will be the municipalities that agree to participate. And at this point, it's Central Frontenac, South Frontenac, Frontenac Islands, and the county. So oops. There we go. So we've done a number of a second study. So Joe mentioned the first study. The second study by WSP looked at what are the different governance options. So how do you make this happen on the ground? And there are a number of examples across Ontario that they looked at. And they came up with the idea that the Municipal Service Corporation was the preferred model. And there's far more detail in the WSP study if you're interested. But the select group, which was the 4 mayors plus 4 community members, looked at all of the models and recommended the Municipal Service Corporation as being the one that would benefit Frontenac the most. So the structure, there is the county, the 4 townships, hopefully including North Frontenac, would be the owners of the corporation, but it would be managed by a professional group. So they would be managed by experts in the field and would be making recommendations to the shareholders, and the shareholders would be approving business plans and operating plans. It would be business oriented. So it's not the traditional municipal model where you balance your budget at the end of the year. They can take on debt, they can receive grants, they can provide dividends. And the finances are separate. So any debt will not appear on the county's book or North Frontenac's books. It would appear on the debt of the Municipal Service Corporation. So it doesn't encumber your ability to borrow money either. And it allows for a consistent approach so that we can say anywhere in the jurisdiction of the Municipal Service Corporation, as Joe said, if you want to build, here are 3 preferred ways that you can do it. And that will speed up the approval process. So it's a consistent approach across the members. The ownership, as I said, would be the corporate members. The County of Frontenac would never be a voting member. And if you think about the logic of that, and the working group worked through a number of different scenarios, but came to the point that the county, for example, the mayor would be on the overall board of directors, but if the county is voting, the mayor would get 2 votes, which didn't make sense. So we decided that, the county would never be a voting member, that it would always be the lower tier municipalities. There is some advantages to that in that, the municipalities set the corporate example. One of the examples that the consultant used was Lakeland Holdings, which is Muskoka, Perry Sound, which is a utility that corporation set up there. And, it's managed professionally, but owned by the member municipalities. And again, there's more information in the study. So in terms of the implementation point, we have a business case that has been approved by the county and has been posted per the Municipal Service Corporation requirements of the Municipal Act. The purpose of our meeting here today is to determine whether North Frontenac wants to join and how that happens. We've also done a draft asset transfer policy. So for example, Joe mentioned that Sydenham has a water treatment plant. That water treatment plant would remain under the control of South Frontenac. It's actually managed by Kingston Utilities until such time as they wanted to transfer it to the Municipal Service Corporation or decided to keep it separate. But the 3 projects that Joe mentioned would be an integral part of the startup.
If that asset is transferred in the future, would there be a levy against the other 3 townships?
So as Municipal Service Corporation, we've set an initial startup budget for North Frontenac, 96,000, total 697,000. The Municipal Service Corporation has no mechanism to ever ask you for more money. So in Lakeland Holdings, Perry Sound wanted to join the corporation. They saw the advantages, the town of Perry Sound. They also came with assets. They came with a small utility and a hydro generating station. So that was valued. But the town of Perry Sound also paid to join the corporation. So essentially compensate the other municipalities for the fact that they hadn't been there since the beginning, and the other municipalities contributed initial startup money. So that's all laid out in the business case, how it could expand. So if North Frontenac decides not to come in, at some point you're going to pay that $96,000 plus a share of whatever assets are currently in the ground generating revenue. So not impossible for you to join later.
I have one question about that 96,000 and changes. payable over a 5-year
5-year
period,
period, correct.
but it may be, more of it may be upfront than over 5 equal years, right?
What we've talked about as a CAO group is that once we know the partners, that we would do a deeper dive on the budget, but the current business case states that it would be that amount over the 5-year periods in equal increments over the 5-year periods.
Thank
In your case, just under 20,000 per year.
Thank you.
If Northrop was to join, and the corporation did go belly up for some unknown reason, would all the townships have to pay
No.
into that? Are they liable or not?
It's no different than Frank's septic system around the corner, they go bankrupt, the assets are distributed. And the liabilities are subject to the courts and the court will determine, but the municipality will never be liable. That's one of the advantages of the service corporation. So I think the easy way to think about this is, in terms of vehicle insurance, if we all had to have $5 million in the bank, none of us would be able to drive a car. Well, I certainly would be able to drive a car. But because we pool that risk, everybody, paying a reasonable fee per month can afford insurance. That's essentially what we're doing, is we're going to pool the risk across, initially these first 3 installations, but hopefully, 8, 10, 12, 20 over the next few years, that risk gets spread. So in the initial study, when they did the financial analysis, they were looking at what is a 95% certainty that's the level of risk that the corporation would want to attain. So essentially saying 95% guarantee. So there's provisions within that will be incorporated and understood as part of the business of the corporation. Things like, we won't accept it until it's been running for 2 years. We'll ask for insurance to cover it. There's various mechanisms you can do to spread the risk. But the idea is we're all in this, and the risk is the corporations, not any individual municipality or any individual developer.
Excuse me. Could I ask a question here?
Yeah.
If a potential development did come up, can we at that point then apply for membership in this corporation?
That would be a vote of the corporation. It wouldn't be any one municipality, so the corporation would have to vote on it. So my Lakeland example, all of the member municipalities, and I was at the town of Huntsville at the time, and we were about 24% of the corporation. We had 24% of the vote and voted to take them in, but it cost them far more to do it afterwards than if they'd joined in the beginning, because the corporation then had assets that need to be valued. So there's no obligation on any municipality to be part of a municipal service corporation. And the county can't force you to do it. Once it's set up, it's a separate corporate entity with a board of directors as appointed by each municipality. Participating municipalities will retain full control over local planning matters. The municipal service corporation can't tell you how to operate your planning. They can give you suggestions in terms of, here are the 3 preferred systems that we have experience on. And it's a separate corporate entity capable of borrowing, applying for grants, and contracting for services. A review by the consultants and the private operators indicated that fees paid by homeowners are in line with typical municipal service fees. And when we were in Newterra, they cited several examples, in the $100 to $125, $140 per month range, which is what I pay in the city of Kingston. Growth and development pressures in Frontenac are going to continue. Communal services, is supported by the province of Ontario, as Joe said. And when the province had their provincial housing task force back last year, one of the recommendations in their recommendation number 44, I believe, was to set up these utility corporations, because no one municipality should be bearing the risk. And this is the fastest way to get development in the ground. And there's the assumption physical assets, the municipal service corporation would follow a process similar to a road assumption by a municipality. So it's not like the developer dumps this on the Municipal Service Corporation. No different than a new road. Mr. Sproul, as your Director of Public Works, would sign off that that road meets the municipal standard, and those standards would be developed and implemented by the Service Corporation. So next steps, we're going to finalize and approve the municipal the agreement. As I said, it's currently with Central, South, and the Frontenac Islands have agreed to join, as well as the county. Apply for incorporation. So as part of that, it would be named the Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation. And now it's a fairly quick process to go through. There is, some paperwork to get done, but, it's a matter of months, not years. So if we make a decision shortly, we should be incorporated sometime before the end of the year, early next year.
So if North Frontenac joins, it becomes a shareholder in this corporation, is that right?
Correct.
And the four townships are putting in slightly different amounts of money based on some formula,
Based upon weighted assessment.
and that gives them a certain number of shares, not all equal.
Correct.
And if South Frontenac in the future transferred that huge asset, would that increase their number of shares in the corporation?
There's a number of different ways you could do it. So for example, in the Lakeland, it didn't increase anybody's shares. It actually, how do I put it? So Huntsville went from 24% down to 18%, but their dividend went from 400,000 per year to 1.2 million per year.
And the dividend is paid out based on revenues generated by the assets.
Correct.
Would that change the board voting structure?
It did in the Lakeland, but I mean, that will be the board's decision. So the board could decide that you're a non-voting member. The board could, they can make all kinds of, no different than any other corporation. They can make a decision. We can't encumber that.
I'm just imagining a scenario where South Frontenac is the largest, most powerful municipality in this group of four. If they transfer that huge asset into the corporation, they could become a dominant member, a dominant force in this new municipal corporation.
Except what the business case states is that it would be Frontenac plus one other municipality required to carry any motion. So all of the other, let's say North Frontenac is in, county's never a voting member. North, Central, and the islands could outvote South Frontenac, even though they're a 57% shareholder.
Regardless of their ownership asset structure within the corporation.
Correct.
Okay.
And likewise, if Frontenac votes in favor of something, they're going to need the islands, Central or North to carry. And that's the exact, they came up with that because that's exactly what Lakeland does. Bracebridge is a majority shareholder, but it required Bracebridge plus one other to vote in
Yeah,
favor.
just aware that we have to be very careful because we're not dealing with four equal municipalities at all.
Correct.
We're dealing with a huge one and three little ones.
Yes. So in terms of dividends, and let's just use round numbers, let's say you're 10% of, actually 15 or 16%. You would get 15% of the dividend.
Thank you.
And 15% of the vote. So I'll leave the slide, and I think we've touched on virtually all of these things, but there are several advantages to it. Again, no obligation on North Frontenac to join. The other three are committed to moving forward, but there's no obligation. But I think in particular for North Frontenac, one of the big things to be thinking about is the scalability of this. It could be backlot development. It could be an expansion of, the east side of 41. The potential for attracting a new form of housing to your municipality. But I think the biggest advantage is the environmental protection. You think of a 40 lot subdivision, that's 40 holes, 40 septic systems that are approved the day they go in, but are never looked at again unless they fail, versus something like a communal system where it would be 40 lots with one well and one system that are operated by provincially licensed operators and inspected on a regular basis.
Wayne? Councilor Good, sorry.
No worries.
We gotta keep it formal.
We're on
Just
YouTube,
just a question back on this water system that Joe was talking about. how often does that have to be maintained? And like, cause it would likely have to be shut down to be maintained, and how long would that take? To put that system in?
Through you, Mayor. It's a good question. Again, I can only tell you what Newterra people said in their particular technology. It never breaks, it never shuts down. They've got fail safe, and I'm sorry, I'm not an engineer. They've got some fail safe measures and the monitoring. If there's something wrong, they can go and fix it right away. But they showed us an image of one of the systems in the Arctic that was surrounded by ice. It couldn't fail. It couldn't fail. So I don't understand the technology, but one of the questions we heard at the session was, you've got something that you have to take out, like sludge or whatever. How often does that have to be replaced? And they said not that often. I thought every 5 years or something. And there's a special depots in Eastern Ontario that you can take these through. So it's not something that builds up inside. It treats it right at the source. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I kind of understand. It's more like, it could be like a backwash system, like a pool has that back flushes the filters.
Something like that.
Yeah. I think that was the exact analogy that the actual Newterra reps used. This technology inside the container is really not very, it's not imposing. It's basic off-the-shelf pumps and off-the-shelf filters. The one filter system for the water is kind of unique, but they buy that and they have all kinds of that stuff there. You replace it every 7 or 8 years or something.
Yes, 7 years.
It's actually, the system is designed to keep it going all the time. And they made the point which you don't need to have a rep there every day. So depending where the system is and so on, how it's functioning, you can monitor it electronically. And we asked about, this is North Frontenac, we have all kinds of rucks and elevation changes and whatever. Well, if it's working in Parry Sound, it can work here. And they have a sewage collection system based on like a cruise ship would use, zone vacuum and whatever else and so on. We see how that would actually work, but it is doable.
Yeah, and one of the big advantages of a system like this. So in my little urban lot in Kingston, there's a 24-inch sewer force main that goes beside my wife's our bedroom window that keeps her up at night. Used to anyway. So it's large construction. This is all small bore construction, and that's why it works in the Arctic. That's why it works at the Rosso Resort in Muskoka. It's small bore construction. It's not, it can go underneath the sidewalk. You're not spending massive amount of money on the connection.
Deputy Mayor.
We voted against this in the last term of council. I think it was just last year. And I recall that the reason was we thought that in North Frontenac, we were probably not going to have this kind of development that would be appropriate to this. So we're reconsidering it now. And it seems to me that the reason we might change our minds and decide to join would be that we do see in some time frame development occurring like you've described, Joe. And that would be a change for this county.
If I can provide council with an example. So some of you were on council when the Ardoch Lake subdivision went through. And there was a lot of debate at those sessions about what are you going to do to the lake? You're going to put 26 new septic systems. It's going to go into the lake. It's going to affect the water quality. That's, in my opinion, that's a perfect example of, we would have said, we want you to build on communal. We don't want 26 separate. We want a treatment plant set back from the lake that will have zero phosphorus impact on the lake. So it's 25 units. And as the mayor noted earlier, the box illustration I showed you can be shrunk down to handle something of that scale. So you can see the potential of saving lake water quality in this kind of development.
In other words, it's still a case that if we joined the corporation and decided to create some infrastructure, that infrastructure would probably not be for existing development in Plevna or Cloyne. It would be for new development. Like, we're not going to punch pipes through the rocks in Plevna to service existing houses.
So through you, Mayor, that's another good question. So as Kelly mentioned, it's small bore technology. You don't have to cut through a lot of rock. And the question of servicing existing development came up when we were talking to the community of Marysville. Because they have significant water quality problems. They're an island surrounded by Lake Ontario and they have terrible water on the island. And it's really a community decision, but in the second area plan, it says that the community can decide if they want to hook up to the box that's put in the future. And there's some economic benefits as well. And then one example I'll give you is that there's a restaurant in Wolf Island that is obviously busy in the summer and they're on a holding tank.
They get pumped every couple of days.
They were spending over $7,000 a month to do this. And again, it's a community decision because the homeowners in the existing village would have to pay to have that pipe brought to their property. And then they'd be part of the utility, but it's doable. That's another real advantage of these systems. You can add to this Lego block, if I can use that basic term.
So just think about what Joe said. We have all these cottages, seasonal homes all over the place. They're all on septic systems. If a septic system would begin to fail, would it be worthwhile installing a large holding tank and pumping it every so often and trucking some to this particular facility? There's a business there. I don't know how feasible it would actually be, but it's something, it's another option. Maybe it won't work, maybe it would. Councilor Herman.
Excuse me, just a comment. When the consultants did their report to county council, in their summary submission, I noticed that they referenced the statement that this may not work for rural municipalities. And when I look at Frontenac County, I see that must have been primarily addressed to North Frontenac, since we're the most rural. How that seems to have some influence on how I look at this proposal.
Well, through you, Mayor, and again, it's another good question. So I'll go back to the Ardoch Lake example. That's not a big development. It's not an urban development. It's not a suburb development. It's a waterfront development. And because these systems can be built at that small of a scale, it is an opportunity to tell a developer, we want you to build on communal. If you're not a part of the utility, that would be a challenge. They'd have to follow the standard operating procedure as it is now, and they'd have to enter in a municipal responsibility agreement with this council, and the financial risk would be on you rather than the utility.
Councilor Fowler. Oh, sorry. My apology. Councilor Fowler, then Councilor Whittle.
I'll be brief. There are a lot of opportunities for, I'm getting feedback. There's a lot of opportunities for developers to come to North Frontenac. This system would system a lot because you can have a smaller development and your sewage and water system is contained and it's clean and there's better opportunities for people, maybe developers would want to come here and develop smaller developments and build our tax base at the same time.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I see the advantages of communal services. I see the advantages of North Frontenac, so that's a good thing. Maybe you don't know, but in my past life, I was director of water and wastewater operations at York Region. So I know a little bit about this.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I have never heard of pharmaceuticals being taken out of sewage. So if you could pass on that detailed information to me, I would like to hear about it because
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
I'm not going to belabor it, but
Yeah.
the end of the box, as the mayor is describing it, it looks like long
Oh, I know what it looks like.
straws.
I know what it looks like. I've used Natura. So I know them very much.
Okay,
So,
I will advise Newterra and they
Yeah.
will contact you because they did say that.
I would
correct me
like
if
to
I'm
see
wrong.
that information and data.
Thank you.
As far as communal services go, you paint a very rosy picture here. I've seen the other side of communal services. And, as far as maintenance goes or breakdowns,
Yeah.
and any man breaks down, right? There are maintenance issues. You're gonna have lots of maintenance issues in this communal service, no matter where you are. It's just part of life, right? It's what happens. I know they have backup systems and what they do with that. It's not as rosy as you're making it sound. right? It does work. We use them for emergency service at York Region. That's where we would put these boxes in, right? There are issues with them and it has to be managed properly, right? The other thing I'm a little bit always concerned about is private sector getting into water and wastewater. And when someone's making money on it, that sort of bothers me because I really prefer the municipal last. I know we can't do it here, but you know, the non-for-profit sort of model, that's sort of what I like to go to. I've seen issues with Aqua and other private sector and just how they're run. So that's my 2 cents.
Just to clarify your last comment, Counselor. So this is a public utility. Like Utilities Kingston, it is not a for-profit company. Kelly mentioned different municipalities getting revenue checks at the end of the year. Those are community benefit things, but it is a public system. They'll be owned by the corporation and it is an arm's length utility, but it is not a private company.
Except if we use someone like Aqua, who is a private company to run it.
Yes.
That's my concern.
So that is an economy of scale question
No,
about.
I'm not saying it's
No.
wrong.
No.
I'm just saying that's a concern that it has to be looked at. And I always have an issue in municipal water and wastewater when private sector are involved.
Yeah, I understand that. And again, you know, has been a discussion about when they get to a certain threshold, if there's 10 or 12 of these in the ground, then you can actually have municipal staff doing this rather than an operator.
Okay, everyone. Any final questions? Brooke, would you read the resolution again, please?
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved that council receives for information a presentation from Kelly Pender, CAO, County of Frontenac, and Joe Gallivan, Director of Planning and Economic Development, County of Frontenac, regarding Frontenac Communal Services, and thanks them for their time spent today.
Deputy Mayor,
How long have we got at this price?
well, that's a good question. I was going to suggest that you have, that Kelly would send Corey what that figure is. Corey, put this into a resolution for us to have a final discussion at our next meeting and then decide what we're going to do. Because this resolution is not set up for us to accept or say, aye, yes, or no on this right now. Counselor Good.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear what the results is, comes back to Councilor Hurdle from these pharmaceuticals and stuff too as well.
I heard the same thing as everyone else did, and I was surprised and asked that question. And they said, yes, they can do that. However, that's the company selling the technology, right?
I can
So-
say yes to a lot of things and not do it.
I know. Okay. All right, in favor of the motion? Harry,
So Kelly, will that work June 29th? If they bring that back June 29th, will that work? I know you're anxious to kind of get things rolling with the corporation. Will that work okay for you?
Yeah, and you know, just to be clear, it's not my decision to make. And I think the warden and deputy warden wanted to give North Frontenac the opportunity to revisit the issue. So, you know, I will speak to the warden. He knows I'm here today. Our meeting is on June the 21st. So I don't think it's an issue, but again, it's not my decision to make. The other three are ready to sign, but I'm not in the business of putting pressure on anybody to join either.
our next meeting is June the 29th.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a little bit of miscommunication over what we had intended to do and what the results are. So we have passed the resolution. So it'll come as a resolution to say yes or no at our next meeting. What we do need is, I guess we should have something from, said earlier, from the county saying this is the buy-in cost and whatever else. Because some of us have not been on council when this was discussed. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your
Anytime.
presentation and for being here.
It was a
It's
pleasure.
a long haul. I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, not Richard driving, but yeah,
I saw that.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have no delegations. Adoption of minutes.
Moved by Council Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that council adopts the minutes as circulated of a public meeting held May 19th, 2023, and a regular meeting held May 19th, 2023.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Business arising. Recreation waste shared truck replacement.
Moved by Council Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Whereas council passed resolution 20423, approving the manager of community development's request to purchase a truck to replace the 2007 recreation waste truck in 2023 at a maximum cost of 60,000. Therefore, be it resolved that council receives for information an email dated May 23rd, 2023 from the MCD advising staff purchased a new 2022 Dodge Ram 1500 Classic Quad Cab 4x4 SLT for a total cost of $57,510.36. And staff will purchase seat covers, back rack, floor mats, and install the radio and safety lights, staying within the $60,000 maximum budget.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Well done, Brooke. Who bought the truck? Yeah. Okay. KMP Trail.
Moved by Councillor Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Whereas at their meeting on April 16th, 2021, council passed resolution 17721, receiving for information a presentation from Richard Allen, Manager of Economic Development, County of Frontenac, regarding the KMP Trail development, and that council requested township staff work with county staff to prepare agreements for use of township property for the trail. Therefore, be it resolved that council receives for information a letter dated May 31st, 2023 from Richard Allen advising Frontenac County has begun the process of acquiring the former KMP rail corridor in North Frontenac to rehabilitate the former railway into a multi-use recreational trail, and that the county has identified 3,000 meters of former rail corridor under the control of North Frontenac and 2,335 meters of roadways the county is also seeking permission to use with the establishment of a partnership agreement or memorandum of understanding, and that council is supportive of the development of the KMP Trail, and that council authorizes the transfer of PIN 3620900012, PIN 3620900030, subject to an easement for access for waste site monitoring, and PIN 3620900231, requested by the County of Frontenac for a nominal sum. And once the transfers have been prepared by the county, they be provided to council for consideration and signing, and that council instructs the clerk to draft an agreement with the county for use of the 5 identified road allowances, outlining the responsibilities for the trail and road management when the 2 uses intersect for council's consideration.
Are there any questions? Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, what's the location of these last couple pins that were read in the resolution?
Basically along 509 where the property and it runs along the side of the road. So any other questions? In favor? Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe the visitors wanted to say something. They came all this way. Did you have a comment, Richard?
You never know what the questions are gonna be. I was here to answer them, the word. So, you got it.
Use mic, also good. Use your mic, please.
Yeah, is this gonna add to the maintenance on those sections of the road that we're gonna be using? With the whatever, bikes? Whatever's going on.
No, I think the joint use agreement will address signage and access points and configurations. And where they actually cross the road, I think we can address, or eventually there is an impact on the pavement where especially snowmobiles cross all the time. I think we can address that impact in this joint use agreement that we're drafting for those specific locations.
That will include the bridge deck over the Mississippi River, right?
It will.
Good.
They travel that currently. You don't see the impact on the locations where they're traveling along the roadway the same as you do where they're crossing square and all the traffic is concentrated in that one footprint. So.
Thank you. Okay. So that resolution is passed. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate having you here. You're free to stay or you're free to leave. Your choice.
Your business is fascinating, but we thought two days of the issue later and that,
Well, look, you never had a Marysville coffee, so there you go.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's true.
Item 9A, communications section 8.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information, section A, items of the clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Any questions or comments? In favor? Carries. Section B, Snow Road Community Center Butterfly Garden Project.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information an email dated May 12th, 2023 from the Snow Road Community Center Group requesting to install a butterfly garden project at the township-owned Snow Road Community Hall, and the email from Brooke Hawley, Manager of Community Development, dated May 25th, 2023, and the council approves the placement of the butterfly garden at the Snow Road Community Hall in the proposed location.
Are there any comments?
This goes around your,
Hang on. Hang on. Counselor Fowler, then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'm looking at the area that's designated for that to be out in the front of the community center, but to the west is a large field that part of the fire hall. Would that not be a better location or a larger location for this type of thing?
I kind of think that the community center, like the individual meeting this Hannah Quigley is pretty good with this sort of stuff. It's on the fire hall property and it's basically sitting on rock. That rock ledge goes up there. Deputy Mayor.
I was just gonna ask if you were aware, Fred, it seems to me this goes around your mural. Is that the case?
Well, I think the butterflies would improve it.
Irwin, did you have a comment? Okay. Okay, are there any other comments on this? In favor? Carried. Butterflies winning. Okay. Limestone District School Board Strategic Plan Community Consultation.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information an email dated May 30th, 2023 from the Limestone District School Board advising LDSB is seeking input in the development of a new strategic plan to help shape the direction of the district and best support students' learning and well-being. And the board is inviting community partners to share feedback on areas, strength and improvement throughout the board. And that online information sessions will be held on June 13th, 2023 at 3 p.m. and June 21st, 2023 at 11 a.m. to learn more about the process and to participate in an anonymous survey specifically designed for community partners. And that will attend one of the online sessions to participate in the LDSB strategic planning on behalf of council.
Initially, any comments? Who would like to participate in one of these sessions? Definitely. Councilor Agent?
I'd be happy to attend one. The school's right next door there, so.
That's the Limestone District School too.
Mhm.
All right. Corey?
To you. It's actually a virtual, I believe it's a virtual one, but that's perfect. Thank you.
You can,
No matter
you can
which
pick
one?
You can choose which one, I gather.
I have the information. I'll send it off to you.
Okay.
The first sign in, okay?
Anybody else want to attend? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Next item is the Brule Lake Community Association Stewardship Plan.
Moved by Counselor Feudal, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be resolved, the council receives for information the letter from the Brule Lake Community Association enclosing a copy of the Brule Lake Stewardship Plan completed in 2022. And the council wishes to recognize the dedication and commitment of the association in preparing the document. And the council instructs the clerk to include the plan on the township's website.
Any comments? Counselor Hoodle.
Yeah, I asked to bring this forward. I just wanted everyone to recognize the effort and the work that went involved. It's quite a detailed document and a job to done.
It's an excellent document. Deputy Mayor.
It's a large document. I read as much as I could in 30 or 40 minutes. One thing I noticed is that they are asking for designation, new designation as an act capacity lakefront lake, which we may have to consider in discussions in the future.
Counselor Fowler, no? Counselor Good?
Yeah, I read this, like John said there, I read a lot of it and I found it very interesting. There was things, I've lived here all my life and a lot of things I didn't know about. Really like. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay, so let's vote on this in favor. Carried. Okay, so we're about to go to item number 10. Let's take a 10-minute break till 22:11. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Item 10A. Part 8 of the Ontario Building Code, Septic Systems Update.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Feudal. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Chief Administrative Officer's administrative report entitled Update, Part 8 of the Ontario Building Code, Sewage Septic Systems Update. And that the council of each municipality is responsible for the enforcement of the Building Code Act, including Regulation 33212, the Act, which includes sewage systems, Part 8. And that council approves the township taking on Part 8 septic inspections in-house, as it will be the most efficient way to provide these services to our residents. And that council directs the CAO to hire a permit clerk in 2024 to assist the CBO with reading septic plans, completing filing, processing septic permits, and to assist with processing building permits when needed.
So our chief building official, Don Reed, is here. Does anyone have any questions? Counselor Hoodle.
Thanks, Don. I like this because I think this is the way it should go. I think this is a good thing. My concern is just the clerk. So it looks like in the report that it's sort of neutral revenue. It's going to pay for itself, hopefully, right? So I think that's a good idea.
Howard, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just looking at the fee schedule on page 216. Are these pretty consistent with other municipalities, what they're charging as well?
They're very similar. The health unit brought those fees in and the other municipalities used them. So the Frontenac's been like that during our term of those fees. They're fairly close. Different sizes and stuff and geographics would change the fees a little bit, but that's what was based on for Frontenac.
So I have one question. It's really to the CAO as opposed, but you can chime in if you wish. Several meetings ago, we had an information session about basically a mentoring program for new building officials. When we talk permit clerk, is there some way we could wrap a mentoring system for a new building official or additional building official in with the septic expertise?
So we did discuss that, and really, this is really an administrative role of this. So we had talked about, you guys have given me some direction to explore the mentoring program, the provincial one, which we still haven't received information on yet. So we don't know if there's going to be some funding out there to help. That there's a lot of questions. So we have, when you guys had me pass that resolution, I have had a couple of staff that have said, I would be interested in being considered for that, the mentorship portion of things. But again, because we're not able to get those details yet, we kind of stayed away from that within this realm and kept it more of an administrative role for this.
I just asked you to keep an eye on that and see if it is possible. I mean, good as Don is, you know, he decides to go somewhere else or he can't get around to everything else. Are there any other comments?
Just one question, the class 1 septic system is a privy. Is there any fees for that?
No, that's a superstructure of the building code, so it's exempt from it has to follow the building code, but there's no permits for that. So no, it was, right.
Deputy Mayor,
Does this additional responsibility overload your work schedule, Don?
So it is a significant amount of permits, but with the permit clerk would help me in the office with the administration side of it. So I'll be able to go to the field a lot more for inspections and stuff. And that will set up, you know, all the inspections and be able to review a lot of stuff. A permit clerk keeps under the level of the building code of requirements needed by the code. So a plans examiner would need requirements under the code and they have to follow the same jurisdiction I do, where a permit clerk would just be underneath that. So it's kind of the way of most municipalities bring an intern person in to, you know, start off with the permit clerk. And then if they decide to take the qualifications, then they can move up from there, right? But at this point in time, it's just administrational position.
in favor? Carried. Thank you. Updated seniors funding, CAO.
Moved by Counselor Feudal, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Chief Administrative Officer and Treasurer's Administrative Report entitled Update regarding senior spending, and that council approves the draft memorandum of understanding with Rural Frontenac Community Services and Land O'Lakes Community Services for a one-year pilot program, and the CAO and Treasurer will meet with both agencies in March 2024 to discuss the success of the program and consider options that may enhance the program if needed, and that council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to sign the memorandum of understanding, and that council allocates a maximum of $10,000 to each agency for the first year towards this program. However, each agency will invoice the township for actual services provided, which will assist in assessing the need for the program and potential future costs to ensure the program remains sustainable if needed. And that the township will assist the agencies with marketing for brokered workers and or volunteers to assist with the program using township staff and funding for advertising. And that the township will continue to assist with marketing the program once implemented to help ensure seniors are aware of these opportunities.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
I have a couple of comments. The first one would be that by providing administrative assistance in finding workers, this is certainly going to end up costing the municipality more than $20,000 in the first year.
So we're not going out and interviewing anyone or anything like that. We're just going to promote. We're going to promote on their behalf. So we'll be reaching out to our hall committees, our groups throughout the township. We'll be doing some social media posts, maybe some newspaper ads, but we're not going to be doing the recruiting itself. We're just promoting out there that they need them, and that recruiting will be done through the agencies, not through us.
So you, for example, you won't be receiving calls from the public.
We'll be directing all that to the agencies because they're going to be looking after the staffing.
My second comment is a bit more general. So basically what I'm seeing is we're giving 10,000 to each of the two agencies, RFCS and LOL. RFCS is not making any change at all to their program. They currently have home support. It's funded through one of the ministries. At the end of the month, they send a bill to users, to clients, and those clients pay for the hours that they've received at a discounted rate. So where is the $10,000 going that we're giving to RFCS? Is that going to give an additional $5 an hour credit to the clients? Or is RFCS just going to absorb it within its administrative costs? I just see LOLCA, Community Services expanding their service. Rural Frontenac Community Service continuing with what they already do and are funded for.
So the point of this is for those seniors using the service will pay $5 less an hour. So that's the whole point. It's not about anybody making money, or it's about them paying. So if they're paying $18 an hour now for either agency to come in, they'll now pay $13 an hour instead of 18.
I'm happy with that as long as you're happy, Corey, with enough transparency from the agencies that they show you that that is happening.
Yes, I am. That was our complete discussions, and that's what this is all based on.
Thank you, Corey. Are there any other questions from any other counselors? I have a question, Corey, and that's the March 24th date, or the March 2024 date. I'm concerned we're already in middle of June, and time this gets launched is going to be another month or two. It doesn't seem to be enough time to evaluate the program. Why did you choose March 2024?
So again, we just wanted to make everything fall within a year. So we're kind of thinking if we get this approved in June, then, that gives us that year. So we meet the agencies in March, we can have our next one rolling in June again. So we're trying to keep within that time frame is what we were doing, within that year time frame.
Any final comments? Sorry.
I do. So part of the resolution, it says we're going to adopt a bylaw today, but we actually aren't. We didn't bring one for you. So what we'll do first is we'll get the community agencies to sign these, and then we'll bring it back for the next. Yeah, if we could remove that, if that's okay with council, we'll remove that portion, and then we'll get the agencies to sign the MOU if you approve it, and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting for the bylaw.
So in favor of the amended resolution? Anybody opposed? Carried. Shore Road allowance closure and sale bylaw, Hughes Simmons.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Futo. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Closure and Sale Bylaw, Hughes Simmons, and that as required by bylaw 2023, all those parts of the Shore Road Allowance in front of lot 22, concession 11, geographic township of Miller, being parts 1 and 2 on registered plan 13R 22812 Mackey Lake, be declared as surplus and sold to the adjoining owner. Appraisal of the property is not necessary as this is a Shore Road allowance, and that council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to stop off, close, and sell a portion of the Shore Road allowance.
Are there any questions or comments? In favor? It's carried. Shore Road allowance applications for approval in principle, Taylor, Wickham, McDonald, Tyrell, and Tamont de Camelis.
Moved by Counselor Futo, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled 4 Shore Road Allowance Applications for Approval in Principle, Taylor, Wickham, McDonald, Tyrell, and Tamont de Camelis, and that council approves in principle the applications to close, stop up, and sell the Shore Road allowances as described below. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to Part Lot 8, Southwest Range, Geographic Township of Clarendon, Big Gull Lake. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to Part Lot 27, Concession 5, Geographic Township of Clarendon, Mississippi River, Mud Lake. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to Lot 258, Plan 1044, Geographic Township of Berry, Kashwakimak Lake. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to Lot 326 and Lot 326A, Plan 1045, Geographic Township of Berry, Kashwakimak Lake.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. License agreement for use of municipal road allowance, LeBrun.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council received for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Request for License Agreement for Use of a Municipal Road Allowance, LeBrun, and the council instructs the clerk to advise the applicant the council approves in principle of their request to open a 14-foot wide road on the 66-foot concession road allowance between concessions 8 and 9, Lot 17, Geographic Township of North Canonto, provided they survey the road allowance, obtain any permits if required from the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry, apply for a civic address, and provide a certificate of insurance. And that once this information is provided to the clerk, council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the license agreement, including the terms and conditions listed in the sample agreement provided with this report.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Recording of council meetings, opening remarks.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Recording of Council Meetings, Opening Remarks by Chair, and the council approves the opening remarks to be read by the chair at the beginning of each council meeting. And the council instructs the clerk to post a notice at the council chambers on the township website, provide the notice to delegates, presenters, and include in the notice in the agenda package.
Are there any comments? Deputy Mayor.
Personally, I have a problem with the mayor having to read this whole thing. Takes about a minute at the beginning of each meeting. I would rather see a very quick one-sentence reference to the fact that everybody in the room is potentially being recorded. I think that's legally probably enough.
Did we,
I can say when we looked at other townships who are either live streaming or recording and placing them on YouTube, this seemed to be the standard wording that was being used.
when we do the committee of adjustment, there is about a minute and a half blurb at the start talking about rights and, you know, this can be recorded and this is what happens if we lose the Zoom connection and everything else and so on. Councilor Hoodle.
Do they do this at county meetings?
Councilor Fowler, do you see this at county meetings? I don't. No,
No.
I just don't.
There is a preamble that's read by the chair at the Committee of Adjustments.
No, at the county council meeting. They don't do any kind of preamble about you're being recorded and everything else. No, they do not.
With those meetings, you're often being photographed by the WIG standard.
No. They have a YouTube system called an owl that sits in the center. And literally when you speak, it's activated and boom, you're on. I suggest we try this, see how it works. Give it 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, we can just say this is too cumbersome. Or we can defer it. Did we talk to Central Region or what they do? Or Addington Highlands? Central.
Actually, the reason I had actually watched an Addington Highlands council meeting and they had done this, and that's why we're I've brought this up again. I think it's really important that people know that they're being recorded. So if you have people that are gonna zoom in when they do the public part, they know that they're being recorded. It's important. I mean, it's the same with if we're out taking pictures for our social media and we get people on it, we have to get their permission, right? We can't just start posting pictures or we put up a notice at the halls that we're, but I do think it's really important and it could say, for the 30 seconds it's going to take you to read it. I think it's worth worth saving some potential liability down the road.
Yeah, so let's try it for 6 months.
Oh, if we adopt this, we can look at it in 6 months and say, no, it's not working out. We want a revision or something. So all in favor of the resolution? Anybody opposed? Carried. You don't have to read it.
I have to listen to it.
Oh, sorry. Get used to it. Okay, so, where are we? Okay, so license agreement application for use of the township road allowance, Loons Call Campground and Cottage Resort.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled License Agreement Application for Use of Township Shoreline Road Allowance, Loons Call Campground and Cottage Resort, and the council instructs the clerk to advise Mr. and Mrs. Cruikshank. The council approves of their request to have the docks on the Shoreline Road Allowance on Marble Lake, provided a license agreement is entered into before the dock is reinstalled, and that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the license agreement once Mr. and Mrs. Cruikshank sign the agreement and provide a certificate of insurance.
Any comments? Counselor Good?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we should be adding to that it's up to the applicants to if permission is required from Oceans and Fisheries or MNR or Mississippi Watershed people, it's their responsibility to get those permits. Right?
I think that's actually in the agreement, Counselor Good, but we'll just take a quick look, but I believe it is. I think so. If it's not, we're happy to add it. No, we can add it too. If that would work for you. If it's not in there and you would like, we can add it in there.
Well, it probably should be, because we would be usurping the authorities. That'd be federal, though, I think, right? It doesn't matter, whichever the governing body is. Okay, so we can just go with the motion as is and leave it to staff to adjust the agreement. Ensure everything's okay. So in favor? That's carried. The next item is 10H, is the dedication for the late Jerry Martin. And Brooke, if I'm getting kidding, you can slow me down at any given time. Okay.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Dedication for the late Jerry Martin, and the council instructs the MCD to purchase option blank and have the memorial installed at the cenotaph.
Are there any comments about this? So I want to discuss this in general, and then if we decide to go forward, we'll pick an option. Okay, so seeing no comments about this in general, let's talk about options. Counselor Fowler, then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I was looking at the option number one. It seems to be more of a permanent installation. I'm just wondering, where would the brick go if we use this one?
Under your feet. It's under your feet, right? Is that the way it fits? It's on the ground.
You're laying flat on the ground and you look down at the engraving.
Yes. Okay, let's do it this way. Option one, show of hands. Who wants option one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Option 2. Option 1 it is. Well, hang on, we still have to. We, what did we do with the vote here? We didn't do that, did we? Did we vote on this yet? No. No. I just wanted to, we just picked an option. Deputy Mayor, you have a question?
So we're going with option one. I think it's fairly important exactly where on the pad this brick goes. I mean, that's fairly symbolically important. Who chooses that?
It was going to be me that chose that, but if you have a specific request that you would like a specific location, I'm open to recommendations on where it goes.
I guess I'd like to see an agreement from council as to the position, maybe with a little sketch. Like if you put it in the center, right beside the monuments, it perhaps would imply that Jerry was a vet and we were honoring for that, which we don't want. So I'd like you to maybe bring forward a sketch with a suggestion.
Anybody else in council figure that's necessary, or do we just leave it to staff to do? Councillor Hoodle?
I'm fine with staff as they do that, as long as it's somewhere near the cenotaph, I think it's good. I was even thinking right in the center there, but Deputy Mayor has a good point, but maybe off to the side. I'll let Brooke handle it.
Brooke?
If I can comment, we could put it right at the beginning of the pathway leading into the cenotaph, so it doesn't take away from the cenotaph, but it's at the beginning of the walkway, so and it's.
Good idea.
I'm fine with that.
Your approval isn't up to it. I was just being catty, sorry. That wasn't called for. Okay, all right, everybody in favor of this? Who's in favor of this? It's carried. Okay. The next item is the Manager of Community Development 2023 Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grants.
Moved by Councillor Feudal, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled 2023 Ontario Trillium Capital Grant, and the council directs the MCD to apply to the 2023 Ontario Trillium Capital Grant for 100% project funding, and that council directs the CAO to enter into a funding agreement with the Ontario Trillium Foundation upon the township's successful application to the capital grant for 100% project funding, and that council directs the MCD to install an outdoor fitness zone at the Clarendon Miller Community Hall grounds if the township is successful with its application to the capital grant for 100% project funding.
We have comments, Councillor Hoodle.
I thought we already approved this.
So there was a previous grant through the Hydro One that you guys did approve. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in obtaining this, so we're trying again with the Trillium grant.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Fowler.
This is going up at the Clara Mill Community Hall grounds. Have we taken into consideration some other locations within the township? If something like this comes up again, where we can apply and have it, say, in Coin or Snow Road or one of these other places?
Yep, absolutely. I think Clare Mill is the most central at this point, and in the future, I'd love to have one in every little community, but at this point, I think Plevna is the most central to the township, so then everybody has kind of equal driving access to it.
I'd like to see it get spread out eventually.
All right, anything else? In favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Carried. Public Works Manager proposed sign bylaw update. If we would like, Darwin is here and he's offered to walk us through it. Would anybody like that to happen, or are people comfortable enough with it just the way it is. There's a lot of stuff in this. So. Okay, folks, nobody's asked to have Darwin do a presentation. I have to let you read the resolution. Sorry.
Moved by Councillor Hudol, seconded by Deputy Mayor Inglis. Be it resolved, the council receives the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Proposed Sign Bylaw Update for information purposes, and the council supports the options recommended by the PWM in this report and directs the preparation of a sign bylaw for the township as follows. The sign bylaw will control private signage within the township right of way. Directional sign tabs will be installed on arterial roads in advance of township road intersections to provide notice to tourists. The estimated cost of the directional sign tabs is $4,500. The remaining MTO Green Road information signs on Road 506 and 509 will be removed once they are deteriorated and not replaced. The small business and service signs that are posted on trees, hydro poles, fences, and township signposts within the ROW will be removed during the transition period and will only be permitted on business directory sign panels installed by the township. Business directory sign panels will be installed at entrances to the township, key intersections, community halls, waste sites, boat ramps, and park facilities. The estimated cost of the business directory sign panels is $1,000 each. Sign provisions will be removed from the zoning bylaw during a regular update and included in the sign bylaw. Mobile or portable signs will be permitted on a temporary or permanent basis at business properties and on a temporary basis at other locations. Small real estate signs will be permitted at the property for sale and at road intersections to provide directions to the property. Large temporary signs mounted on frames, supports, and placed within the ROW or at intersections will not be permitted. Small fingerboard type sign cottages that identify properties and provide direction at an intersection other than on an arterial road are considered part of the township's character and will be permitted if there isn't a safety or aesthetic concern. Notice will be provided to sign owners regarding the sign bylaw, application process, and transition period. Non-compliant signs not addressed by the owner at the end of the transition period will be removed by the township and held for pickup by the owner for 30 days. Signs that result in safety concerns will be removed immediately by the township. The sign bylaw transition period will be 1 year. A one-time application fee is recommended for new signs on township property installed after the bylaw is approved. An annual fee is not recommended. The fee will be reviewed and the cost will be provided to council for consideration when the bylaw is drafted. The application fee will not apply to signs grandfathered at the time the bylaw is approved or small business and service signs posted on the proposed township business directory sign panels or temporary signs at other locations such as real estate signs or signs on private property. Illuminated signs are permitted subject to safety considerations and the township lighting guidelines. And that the cost of the business directory sign panels will be proposed in the 2024 budget if the sign bylaw is approved and if the bylaw includes the directory sign panels. And that council approves the installation of directional sign tabs in 2023, and the cost of $4,500 is to be transferred from the Infrastructure Sustainability TCA Reserve Fund, and that the Public Works Manager will be responsible to complete inspections as required and oversee the sign application process.
Any questions? So I need Councillor Hermer first, Councillor Regent, then Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Fowler.
Darwin, will this apply to campaign election signs?
I didn't identify those specifically in here, probably similar to real estate signs where they're up on a temporary basis and we'll watch if we can't cause safety concerns with visibility at intersections, et cetera. But I think they'd be treated the same as the provision in there for the short-term real estate signs.
Councillor Regent.
Darwin, just to clarify something, is the business directory sign panel, different from the project that the Economic Development Committee is working on to potentially build a structure for people to put their business signs on? Is this the same thing or is it something else?
Yeah, I'll be working with Brooke and Matt on that. We're talking about the same type of structure and similar approach. It's really trying to do away with those, 2-foot by 3-foot signs that get tacked everywhere within the right of way.
Yeah, so was the other project though.
Yeah, no, I think that would be part of the same initiative.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as, because there's been a lot of work put into that by Danielle. Paul, myself, we've been working on that for months. And I feel like maybe that got missed here.
Deputy Mayor.
I was not aware that Public Works was involved in this. That's great, I think, because it provides new funding. And we're short of funding, but Stephanie's right. We had a subcommittee working on this for quite a while and came up with some very specific suggestions. I was going to say there's been some thinking in silos, but maybe I'm just not aware of the communication that's been happening already.
Councilor Fowler.
Yeah, signs that are temporary, like for yard sales or art shows and things like that. Are they going to be okay? Can people put them out on the road allowance?
They are, I guess I could have expanded on the list with real estate signs, but I see anything of that nature similar to the approach here for real estate signs. So they're shorter term and they're picked up when the event's over.
Also with the larger real estate signs, what's the limit of what's their limit for size?
We can include a limit in the bylaw. We haven't developed one yet, but what we're wanting to guard against are the large ones you see right now that are on frames and tend to gravitate towards intersections and generate a lot of issues with visibility.
Could I just ask?
No,
one
no.
quick-
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Councilor Good.
I think it's a good idea. We've had this sign bylaw for a couple of years now, or whatever it's been. And I still see signs going up all over the place. So this gives it some teeth to do something with these. People's putting them on the trees and all over the country.
Councilor Fowler, you have one more question?
As far as the signs on the road allowance, I think this bylaw should give the authority to the public work manager and his team to remove signs that are there, and
It does.
yeah, okay.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm in favor of this, Darwin, as long as you are convinced you can enforce it. The number of large real estate signs in this community has exploded. You're going to be dealing with a bunch of angry type A personalities who put up these signs. Can you do that?
We can do that. We're up to, we deal with them a lot now because we're always, with people providing signs in the right of way. We're back to them now requesting that they move them, relocate them, do it. And for the most part, they're cooperative with that. And where they haven't been, we've at least moved them back or taken them out of service. So there'll certainly be a transition period and it'll take a lot of effort to, over the transition to implement this, but.
Okay. So I have issues with this, of course. I think the $4,500 for directional signs and taking down the old MTO signs, that's a great idea and we should do that. I think maximizing the size of these big framed, primarily real estate signs, smaller than what they are now, is a good idea. I'm not crazy about having flashing or backlit neon signs on our right of way and allowing them to be there essentially permanently. The signboards really causing me some issues. I think it's a bureaucratic nightmare. So you build something, say 2 pieces of plywood, you're looking at 8 by 8, right? 8 by 16. What are the size of the signs you put on there? Who gets to put a sign on there? How do you monitor it? What if somebody vandalizes it? What if it's full and we got a new business, they can't get on there? Do we just build another section? I also don't think putting these huge billboards on a high speed right away or along 509 or 506 is a good thing. People are focusing on that. Stuff at intersections is not good. At the community centers, maybe the boat launches, the wayside, that's something different. But I think there's more bureaucratic issues than just saying, these are a good idea. That's just my 2 cents worth. Councilor Hoodle.
I know that Stephanie's leading, or maybe not leading, but part of the group. I think we need her to come back with her suggestions. What they're working on is quite good. So it's going to come back to council, I'm sure. So I think we wait to that. But in overall, this is good, in my opinion.
Yeah, Danielle is revitalizing the initial plan, so she can actually present something to the Economic Development Committee, which would then be shown to council to answer all those questions. But that's why I brought it up, because this looks like the same thing. So I feel like we've had like 2 groups of people doing the same work. Maybe we can all maybe we all need to just talk about this together then, because if this is less expensive for one, but we can, what Danielle has put together is quite attractive looking and which is part of the point. So when you enter into the township, it's like, wow, this is North Frontenac. So, maybe there's a way for us to all put all of our information together or something, because I would hate to see her at this point to just kind of, oh, there's the report and too bad. But I get the point of this as well.
I think that the report that comes back to us, or the bylaw, however it's going to come back, the upgrade, or if it does come back, it should single out election signs. I don't want to take it for granted. You're allowed to put them on the rights of way. And when we're talking about large billboards, I'd like to make sure that their placement's restricted to areas that don't block views, like even on driveways and so on. Some of these are stuck right next to the driveway and people can't get out because they can't see past this huge sign. So that's just my 2 cents worth. Deputy Mayor.
I think part of this is wishful thinking, quite frankly. There are probably thousands of signs for businesses and services stuck on trees. So I think what you're proposing is the township staff will rip all those down and replace them with something organized like the EDF and your department is working on centralized signs. And I understand what the mayor is saying about bureaucracy. I'm not convinced that we can handle it well, but Darwin, are you aware of just how difficult it's going to be to keep signs off trees and posts in the future?
In my previous life with MTO, it was a full-time job for some staff on Monday mornings to clear up. Everybody knew what the policy was. Everything went up on weekends and everything came down on Mondays. So no, and that was a cycle that went on and on.
Mission accomplished.
It's a challenge. I don't know how else to handle it. We're trying to address the aesthetics and the sign congestion that you turn it onto 506 at 41. You don't want to see signs on every available stand, over in almost to Myers Cave. So we're trying to address aesthetics and safety. And I've talked to Matt about the other initiative. He offered to be here. I just see the 2 of those mesh. I'm not proposing anything separate from what Councillor Regent's group was bringing forward. In fact, I don't want this to look like a big billboard with a whole bunch of the signs that would be. It's not to look like a billboard when you turn in on 506 off 41. So it's challenging. I just don't know what else to do about them. And we purposely stayed away from a fee, even a nominal fee for those smaller signs, just to help with the transition of getting them off the right of way and people to buy into putting them at, with their signage at an approved location. Later, it gets up and running, you can review the fee issue again when we see how much effort's involved in this. But it's this is really watered down from what other most agencies don't allow private type sign within the right of way, they're beyond the right of way. And the same, the illuminated signs, it really strict conditions on the approval of those. Something like we have in the front here would take a long time to get through MTO and get approval for it. They'd be looking at light intensity and all kinds of other impacts and distractions. So I think we stayed away from controlling signs on private property, which would take a lot of intensive effort. So it's a good start and just trying to manage signs within our right of way.
It's the final comment on that. This township is a dark skies designated area, the entire township, right?
Yeah, on the provision, sorry, the provision here for the illuminated sign says, you know, in accordance with township lighting guidelines too. So it was the dark sky provisions that we had in mind when we included that.
So do we defer this particular resolution until we hear back from the economic development team?
That would be great. But I was also gonna suggest that like maybe Paul and Danielle and I could sit down with Darwin and Brooke and like, which we could do before, after, whatever you think. I just,
So can we not just add to the motion that they will talk about this, not defer it? In principle, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, well, I don't think like those signs are $1,000 a piece. That's $15,000. And by this time next year, it'll be 17, 18, plus you got to install them. So just say 20, 25,000 bucks.
we had sorry to interrupt, we had a plan regarding how to pay for it, sponsorship. We have like a fabulous presentation, actually. You don't look convinced, but we do.
No, I'm surprised to hear that. Darwin, 2 cents, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well, the purpose of bringing this forward, it's, as Councillor Good mentioned, I brought a similar admin report to council back in 2020 and haven't delivered the sign bylaw since then. We're close with, I'd call a final draft or a draft that can come to council in the near future. And I was seeking direction on, I see these as the most major items and seeking direction from council to fine tune that draft. And there's no, I mean, we can change direction on the signboards. That was just one approach to it. That was the idea of presenting this. The final buyout may include it or may not include it, but I was just seeking direction on this. The one item I would like to, it's almost a separate issue, but the sign tabs, you see them in Lanark County and a lot of agencies are certainly away from the big green MTO type signs and on approaching intersections. So it gives motorists some advance notice. They're doing these yellow sign tabs, and most times they go on a post with a warning sign in advance of the intersection. I would like to seeking approval for that, really separate from the other points that are reflected in the sign bylaw. So that's the $4,500. That was in my report in 2020. At that time, the estimate was 2,000.
Read that.
So one, the prices went up, and two, I've included everything on regional roads, on the arterial roads. So that's 509, 506, Harlow, Henderson, Buckshot, and Elfin Maberly, and only doing kind of the more major side roads. So that's what the 4,500 is for. So and with council's consideration and approval, that we could go ahead with that anytime.
Councillor Good.
I think we could go ahead with this and it can be changed afterwards. It doesn't, it's not written in steel, but I think we should get started on it. Because it's been 4 years or 2
You're
years.
talking the whole bylaw or?
Yes.
Or just the 4,500?
Just to let Darwin go ahead with the bylaw. Because even as it stands, we do have a bylaw that was put in place in 2020 and the economic development group has to abide by that themselves as well. So if Darwin and them get together on it and they decide they want to change it, then they can bring it back to council at that time and we can change it to whatever.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Inglis.
Perhaps an alternative or an option would be to put in a phrase at the end that says we will delay removing private small signs from trees until the EDTF and until the township has what are called business directory signs installed. We can just simply delay that part, either in the resolution or informally without saying so.
I for one, don't like passing this in its current form. I understand what we're coming from. Can we just not change it to the 4,500 and wait for one meeting or two meetings for the team, whoever this team may end up being, bring it back to us with a more detailed proposal, some of the questions answered that we've asked here? Deputy Mayor?
Personally, I'd like to take action on the real estate signs ASAP.
All right, gladly put them. Does anyone know the size of the typical real estate sign over there? The election signs are 24 by 18, because I measured mine before I left. But I forgot to measure the local massive ones. Well, can we then defer this, ask staff to bring this back to us with the sign tabs and the real estate issue, so on, or the large sign issue for next week? Or for the next meeting. That's 3 weeks from now. Hey, I'm only one vote of the 7th. We can do it. Whatever everybody's druthers are, what you would like. Okay. Councilor Fowler, I'm going around the circle.
I'd rather have it deferred.
Councilor Hermer.
Let's get her done.
Okay. Councilor Hoodle.
I'm fine with it today as long as there's something added about communication with the task force.
Yes. Okay, Corey.
So just to be clear, this is just about bringing a bylaw back for you guys to consider, right? So you approve it today. You're not approving anything about real estate signs. You're just approving Darwin to bring you back a bylaw for future consideration. That's all you're doing. Okay, so I just want to make sure you understand that. It's been a big conversation and we kind of went around, but it is actually, that's what we're proposing. We don't have a current sign bylaw in place right now. So that was discussed and the direction was for Darwin to bring that back to you. So what he's done is brought that back because we have a new council. We wanted to understand what the flavor is. Is this something you want? Is it something you don't? So currently we don't enforce this. We don't have one in place, but it's for him to bring this back for your consideration. So that's all we're talking about. Yeah, that's all we're talking about today. It's just him to bring it back.
Going around a circle, we forget exactly where we're at. So Brooke has written up a slight modification to the proposed motion. Would you read it, please?
We would just add this to the end of this resolution. And that council instructs the PWM to work with the EDTF subcommittee to incorporate the subcommittee's recommendations regarding business directory signs.
I understand what Corey just said. That clarified it. Appreciate that, but I'd like us to get together. There's been a lot of work put into this by both sides.
Okay, the revised motion is on the floor. Everybody in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Steel beam guide rail replacement, 10K.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Inglis, seconded by Councilor Hudol. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Public Works Manager's Administrative Report entitled RFP 2023-10 Steel Beam Guide Rail Replacement 2-year contract update. And the council approves awarding the tender at a maximum price of $138,831.17, including non-recoverable HST. And the council instructs the treasurer to take the additional cost, approximately $14,640, from the Road Sustainability TCA Reserve Fund.
Any comments? Councilor Fowler?
So this is for replacement of these steel beam guardrails. So that's to replace something that's already there, right?
We're doing 2 locations this season, if this is approved in one next season, and in each location it's approved, it's replacing existing 3 cable on wooden posts with steel beam guide rail. The 3 cable installations now don't meet the requirements and the code requirements for traffic protection in our area with the steep side slopes that we have. So as we upgrade or work on these, and just most of our 3 cable locations will have to be steel beam. So we have involved a consultant a few years ago to study this and come up with a 10-year plan identifying our priority locations. And we're in about the third contract addressing those needs. So we have an allocation in the capital budget annually based on that original plan and the cost estimates to address these locations. So
This is not for any new areas, so is it?
no, that's right. These are all replacements.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Good?
This may be more for Kelly. Is our reserve funds staying in a good position or?
So as of right now, they are still in a stable condition. So we're just, we review it annually to see where we're at. We're working on probably coming up with a better system to update our prices, maybe annually with the CPI or something, just to try and stay ahead. We adjust them and we still seem to be a little bit behind.
Okay. Let's take a vote on this. Anybody in favor, or who's in favor? Carrie. Yeah, like getting tongue tied on that. It's been a long day. Yes. Okay. We have no reports that we're receiving for information. External committees, Economic Development Task Force.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Inglis. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the following minutes of the Economic Development Task Force as circulated. A meeting held May 15th, 2023, and a meeting held on May 18th, 2023.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Committee of Adjustment, Planning Advisory Committee.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Inglis, seconded by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the minutes of a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee dated April 24th, 2023.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Giving notice of motion.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Inglis. Be it resolved, the council receives for information a notice of motion from Councillor Roy Hudel regarding communication protocols and procedures for township staff when providing information from outside agencies to council and the public, particularly during non-business hours, and that council approves discussing this matter at the next council meeting.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
Roy or Councillor Hudel, are you going to provide any kind of a written document with suggestions, or is it an open-ended discussion?
Well, I think it's just an open-ended discussion. This all stems back from the issues on the Mississippi River a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. And now with the issue with the forest fire just north of us, I think it's a good opportunity to understand what the proper protocols of communication are, because my understanding is the Mississippi was a result of OPG, or do we have, who's in contact with OPG? How do we communicate that out to public with the fire. You know, there's a lot of misinformation maybe, or I don't know, on Sunday, you know, how do we deal with that? You know, I thought today we would get an update. Chief's not here, but it would have been a good opportunity to get an update. So just a wholesome discussion of how we communicate in a whole.
Anybody else have any other comments? I, for one, agree with Roy. I think it's a good idea. I understand we have protocols in place and we should review what we've got and go from there. So all in favor? It's carried. So item 13, a written notice which be given by a member of council and approved by council at a prior meeting. Assumption of Arkle Road, extension of the maintenance limits to Gordy Lane.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Inglis, seconded by Councillor Hudol. Whereas at their meeting on May 19th, 2023, council passed resolution 248-23 to reconsider resolution 182-23 to assume a 420-meter section of Arkle Road and extend the maintenance limits to Gordy Lane. And the council requested the CAO provide details on the costs of the maintenance. Therefore, be it resolved, the council receives for information an email dated May 24th, 2023 from the Public Works Manager advising the cost to maintain the 420-meter section of Arkle Road on a year-round basis is estimated at $2,400. And the council approves the assumption of the additional 420 meters of Arkle Road and extends the maintenance limits, including snow plowing, to Gordy Lane. And the council approves Mr. Tremaglia having the turnaround constructed at his costs, subject to entering into a license agreement, which shall include the requirements for the construction of the turnaround established by the Public Works Manager, and that the contractor is to provide liability insurance and WSIB, and that the Public Works Manager will provide the required amendment to bylaw 8913 Schedule B to the clerk, and that council instructs the clerk to prepare a bylaw to assume this portion of the road for a future council meeting.
Comments? Councillor Fowler.
This seems, this is my motion. I just want to point out to the rest of council that Arkle Road ends at this address. Gordy Lane now serves 8 additional new properties. Also, Arkle Road was transferred to the township, 66-foot wide, and it was not assumed for maintenance at that time. Bylaw 123-13 speaks to the fact that council can review and determine if clearly in the public interest and the general benefit for the township, they can assume the portion of the road for maintenance. Currently, Arkle Road is well traveled by the public and goes to private lands, crown lands, an active mine, Crown Stewardship Program campsites ran by the township, and there's a lot of summer traffic by people using it. And the EOTA is also on the crown land roads. The length is 420 meters and is owned by the township. The winter maintenance, which was originally asked for by the applicant, is cost the township $1,000 for plowing and sanding. And Mr. Tremaglia is willing to pay the $3,500 cost to build the snowplow turnaround for the township. Those are the facts.
Councillor Good.
Yeah, you just said that the $1,000 per season for the plowing and that, but you're missing out on the other $1,000 every 5,000 every 5 years. So that's another 1,000. So that's $2,400 a year to do this, and then maybe another 8 with that. This guy, there's nine places. There's all kinds of lanes in the country here that's got 75 or 80 cottages on there and homes that people are living in. And if we take over this one here, I'm against it. We're looking at taking over a bunch more. We've been approached by, over the years, I have no idea how many associations to take over their lanes. And we've said no to most of them. So I don't think we should do this for another 8 people. and then it'd be $2,400 a year on the rest of the tax base for, to do 8 people, where you want to do some of the other ones, or you could have, like I said, Gull Lake Lane, or Ash Lake Lane, or there's Wintergreen, not Wintergreen, but lots of them around. I'm against it.
First question, are those 8 lots vacant or there's houses on?
Houses on some of them.
Okay.
And also speaking to the people in the area, they're planning on developing those properties.
Deputy Mayor?
Oh, sorry. I just wonder what's changed since the last time we voted against this. And I think resolution 182-13 should actually read 182-23. Is that correct? Oh, my copy says 182-13. Okay, minor. But it seems to me the only thing that's changed is that Mr. Tremaglia has agreed to make the one-time cost of the turnaround. Other than that, it would still be a $2,400 a year on the township to maintain this, and we voted against that in the past, so I don't see what's changed.
Well, he's willing to put out his own money to build a snowplow turnaround. And the previous resolution did not have that included. So he's willing to put money out and to make improvements. And then beyond that, that's where the Harco Road becomes the Crown Land Stewardship Road. Is that correct, Corey?
I believe it is a little bit further past that, Darwin. Can you confirm?
Yeah, it's beyond that where the private property ends and crown land begins. So the status beyond here would be a forest road, but unassumed for maintenance purposes.
But the signs are there at near Gordy Lane.
Yeah, when was this brought up previously? It was supposed to be a year before it's supposed to be brought up again. So that in the bylaws?
There was a substantial change and we voted that we would reconsider.
Yeah.
Councillor Hermer.
Excuse me, I agree with what Councillor Good said about accepting this. Although the price may be substantially low this time, the next request could be a lot higher.
I think the next request will be a lot higher. So anybody else wish to chime in? Have an opinion? I voted against this the last time simply because we were told it was 400 feet and then reality came to 1,400 feet. And we were told that the applicant was paying for the turnaround and then he wasn't. Now they're paying for the turnaround. It's no longer $1,000, it's $2,400. All those lots are not developed. So if those lots were developed, I would vote in favor of it, but right now, because they're only partially developed, I think that Councillor Good and Councillor Hermer have a reasonable argument. And that I can't support it, but I would support it if all those lots were developed, just like a normal lane. Sorry, let me back that up. I would reconsider supporting it at that point in time. Anybody else wish to voice an opinion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
I asked for a recorded vote.
Okay. All right. Councillor Fowler, sorry.
Counselor Fowler. Counselor Good. Counselor Hermer.
No.
Counselor Hudel.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Inglis.
No.
Counselor Regent.
No. So the motion is defeated. So now on to item 14, the verbal reports. First one is mine, county business. We did not have a county meeting and there was no other additional information. I have not met with the North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance. Wayne Good, Councilor Good.
As you've been seeing, the road closures and the license agreements has kept me busy on that. I didn't make the Shabamika Lake Cottage Association meeting, but my counterpart did. So she'll update us on that.
It was an interesting meeting. I'm looking forward to what she comes up with. Councilor Regent.
So the Lakelands Family Health Team meets again June 24th. And then Mayor Lichty and I attended the Shabamika Lake Association meeting. Would you like to add anything to that? Would you like to,
Maybe,
maybe
well,
we both can,
maybe we both can. They had the same concerns that they had when we met with them last fall. I was just a candidate at that point in time. Their big issue is the public beach and coming across a privately maintained road, and it's causing them substantial costs to maintain that road. And they are indicating that there is significant light damage to the beach, garbage, diapers, glass, and so on. They want their 2 kilometers of Shabamika Lake Road turned into hard surface. We told them, no, it's not practical. And they also are on about the parking at the boat launch and the parking lot there. And I know we're working on a parking bylaw, and Brooke, is that one of the boat launches that's up for some refurbishment this year?
It's not up for expansion like some of the others, but it is, we are gonna address some signage and trailer parking and whatnot in the proposed bylaw.
does that include some cleanup there? Apparently that boat launch is quite a mess. That was what they told us.
I'm not aware of a mess in that sense, but maybe a mess of trailers being parked there potentially, that would be addressed in this.
Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not express that there was old trailers and whatnot sitting there and they've been abandoned? That's how they perceive it to be.
I think there's a larger story behind all this. And I think we need to pay attention to it this year. You know, I might take a couple trips up there this summer just to see what it actually is. A nice hot day, is that beach being heavily used or not? Because their whole point was that up until we began advertising that this public beach is open to the public, there was minimal parking issues, minimal damage to the beach, lots of TLC. And the minute we began advertising it, then the public became aware of it, and yes, there are problems. So we need to investigate that a little bit further, and I will talk with Corey and maybe Brooke, and we'll see, if there's something we can do, get a better picture of what is actually happening there, so we don't have anecdotal evidence. You say on this particular date, this is what we saw, and here's a picture, and on this date, and on this date, and on this date. And, so we get something to actually work with. So that's kind of the way it was. Deputy Mayor.
Was that association concerned about access to North Shore properties over the dam at all? Did they express that?
No. Oh, sorry. They did talk about that on one of the items, but it was kind of an anecdotal. You remember that with property that couldn't get in, but it had been resolved.
Yeah, that's right. So to
Because
answer your
that-
question, not really.
Well, that was a major issue, so I'm glad to hear that that's not a major issue now.
My impression was they're very upset about the beach and the mess and the ATVs and the fact that the wildlife is being disturbed there. And then the boat launch. And of course, what our mayor just mentioned about paving that road, which is, no, we told them that's not going to happen.
Anything else? Okay, so, anything from long-term care? No, okay. Counselor Hoodle,
Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority meeting will be this Monday, so nothing to update on that. And I've been invited to two Lake Association meetings, Bruley and Buckshot.
very good. So on that, did you inform Counselor Hermer or will you? Because of this,
They just wanted one counselor.
pardon me?
They just wanted one counselor.
Okay. So now you kind of see why I was thinking of the last time we talked about one counselor. Okay. Counselor Fowler,
Nothing to report. I'm going to an EOTA meeting right now. I'm asked to be excused.
you're excused.
Right now.
Yeah, you just have 5 minutes to get there. Okay, Deputy Mayor Inglis, Ward 3 Lakes.
I don't have anything to report. I haven't been invited to any Lake Association meetings. But you left out Counselor Hermer.
Did I? Well, I'm sorry. I missed you. You didn't say a word.
Well, I was waiting on you. Myself and the mayor will be attending Mala's AGM tomorrow. That's about all I have to report right now.
Okay. That's Malcolm Lake
Oh, yeah.
and Ardoc Lake Associations together. I had originally met with Kathy Potts, the head of Mala, and we started with a 45-minute presentation with all these topics. The topics remain, but we're at 15 minutes, so there's no way we're going to get through this. So, but we'll do our best. Okay, introduction and reading of bylaws.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Inglis. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaws that have been circulated to all members of council. Bylaw number 3823, road closing bylaw, Hughes Simmons, and that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Now we're at public forum. So, we have anybody online? No, so that's going, don't have a closed session, nothing to rise and report. So we have the confirmatory bylaw, item 19.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Inglis, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that bylaw 3923, being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held June 9th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Next up is adjournment. Before we do, I'd like to council to join me in congratulating Brooke Holly on her recent marriage.
Brooke Ross.
Brooke Ross now. I was going to ask that question, then I thought better of it. So Brooke Ross it is. Okay, adjournment.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Inglis. Be resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 11:59 a.m. until June 29th, 2023, or at the call of the chair.
Any further comments? In favor? Carried.